open forum. We're hoping to hear every voice in the room about how you feel about an ordinance that is just being presented to the RTM probably in the next couple of months. The RTM, for those of you who may be new to town, is our legislative body. There are 36 members and 9 districts. There are 4 representatives on each district. And tonight you will be meeting 4 sponsors of this ordinance. First, next to me, Kristen Shaman, right here is our lead sponsor. Andrew Calabello, could you raise your hands, guys, so you see? Jessica Bram, right here, and Harris Faulkland. So we have 4 of the sponsors. They have put together and spent a lot of time thinking about this ordinance. And we're all here tonight to really listen and get feedback. So the way it works with an ordinance, the sponsors write it, they bring it to the committees on the RTM, but they also bring it out to the community to get feedback. So tonight's about feedback. We're here to really listen, to ask questions, to answer questions, and we will be giving a PowerPoint. So we're going to start off with Kristen is going to start off talking a little bit about the ordinance and giving an introduction.
Great, thanks so much, Liz. Thanks to you and Alice and everybody at the farm for hosting this event. Really exciting to be able to do something like this in person again, and especially in this wonderful town treasure. Allie, I can ask you to pull up my slides, but I'm going to start this off by talking about this proposed ordinance itself. And I'm going to start by talking just a little bit about why we thought we needed an ordinance. Can you go up one more slide? There we go, thank you. Why we thought we needed an ordinance in Westport and why we were moving this idea forward. And the first point is that gas-powered leaf blowers, it turns out, are more than a noise nuisance. I think probably most people would agree that they're a noise nuisance, and I certainly am one of them. I've worked from home for about 10 years. So I've been experiencing what I think a lot of folks who have been working from home during the pandemic have been experiencing for quite a while. But I don't know that I would have been drawn into this issue to the same extent or to the point of proposing an ordinance if I hadn't become aware of how the noise and combustion products from the 2-stroke engines that are used in most gas-powered leaf blowers, just how incredibly polluting they are, and you know, the harms that those combustion products and the noise itself have on the health of workers, primarily because those are the folks who are using them all day, every day in the course of their work. The residents in town, homeowners who are using them themselves, as well as neighbors, and the harms to the environment of the 2-stroke engines and the leaf blowers. That was really what kind of activated me to start looking at this issue. Another reason is that, you know, in Westport, we like to think that we're a pretty environmentally kind of attuned town, and that we are very action-oriented on environmental issues. We've got 2 of the proponents of the plastic bag ban that Westport is pretty well known for from quite a number of years ago now, Liz and Jeff Weiser. And we have, you know, put in place something that we call the Net Zero Pledge, Net Zero 2050 Pledge, which is, you know, goes to the impact that our town is going to have on the environment by the year 2050. And the fact is that we're not going to achieve that goal that we've set for ourselves if we don't start taking action on issues like this, which is, you know, kind of actionable and right in front of us. And, you know, not just have it be nice words. You know, we're right in the middle of a big climate summit going on in Glasgow right now, where there's a lot of activation around what needs to happen at the local level as well as national levels. The third point is just that we felt that there needs to be a level playing field if professional landscapers and homeowners, honestly, are going to have incentives to start to transition to greener equipment. And I'll talk about the details that are in this proposed ordinance in a second, but that, you know, just based on the experience of many, many other communities around the country, having a level playing field really matters, you know, in terms of activating people to make change. And then finally, you know, we felt that I think a lot of folks feel like they have the right to do what they want to do on their property, and that is true up to a point, but that Westporters do have the right to the peaceful and healthy enjoyment of their properties. And if, you know, what's happening around them with the noise and the combustion products is impinging on their ability to enjoy their properties, that's an issue, and we are well within our rights in terms of Connecticut state law to do something about public health and issues of that sort locally. I did want to mention this graphic I have up here is just one data point and I know Valerie's going to talk more about the specific issues with gas-powered leaf blowers, but this is kind of an image that I think sticks with a lot of people, which is that 1 hour of use of a gas-powered leaf blower, according to the California Air Resources Board, which did a study of this, is roughly the equivalent of driving 1,100 miles in a Toyota Camry from LA to Denver. So I'll let Valerie say more about that kind of information later. So next slide. So what's in this proposed ordinance? It's important to note that this is not a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. It's a seasonal restriction. And this is probably the most common approach in places around the country that have put these kinds of things in place. It would say essentially that gas-powered leaf blowers could not be used in the summertime and on holidays. They would be allowed for spring and fall cleanup periods of time in spring and fall seasons, when certainly here in New England we've got a lot of leaves to deal with. Battery or electric leaf blowers could be used year-round. They could be used in the summer to blow grass clippings or pollen or dirt or whatever the things that might be around that you need to blow in the summer are. And I think battery equipment is pretty well up to the task of taking care of that. It could be used to supplement spring or fall cleanups. If you have the equipment, you can use it all year round. It currently says no leaf blowers of any kind during certain times of day, before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. Currently in the ordinance, a lot of towns have those kinds of time of day restrictions in place. The specific time might vary a little bit on either end of that, but currently we say before 9 or after 5 on any day of the week. We do have a limit on the simultaneous use of gas-powered leaf blowers depending on the lot size. So it's essentially 1 leaf blower per acre. So you've got less than 1 acre, it's 1 leaf blower. 1 to 2, it's 2, or 2, 3, it's 3. And again, you can supplement with battery-powered leaf blowers. And part of the reason for that, and Valerie may speak about this a little bit as well, is just that in terms of how the noise works, I mean, we've all experienced this, right? When you've got multiple leaf blowers going at once, the way that logarithmic decibel sound works, that 2 leaf blowers is a lot louder than twice as loud, essentially. Gas-powered leaf blowers could be used if an emergency was declared. So if you've got a big storm like Isaias, and local, state, or federal authorities declares an emergency, gas leaf blowers could be used for cleanup. We did add some limited exceptions for golf courses and public works based on feedback that we got from Parks and Rec and from the Department of Public Works. And in terms of enforcement, we basically just have to abide by the procedure that the Westport Police Department has for violations of local ordinances. It's essentially the same way they would enforce the existing noise ordinance. So like if there's construction before 7 a.m. and somebody complains about it, the police department shows up, they issue either a warning or a violation to the person on site, and that's how the police department enforces all local laws like that they're responsible for. So we just have to kind of follow that procedure. Next slide. So who else is doing this? Lots of places. I just listed a few here that are kind of close by us that we could maybe relate to. Greenwich, Connecticut has some restrictions in place. Not a lot of places in Connecticut, lots of places in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Rye, Hastings-on-Hudson, Southampton Village, Maplewood. Newton, Scarsdale has had a summer restriction like the one we're talking about for 25 years. And they actually just went back late last year and made their ordinance even stronger. And there are more than 200 other communities in the U.S. That have some form of restriction on gas-powered leaf blower use. Lots of universities, Yale and Columbia included, have transitioned to greener lawn maintenance equipment and practices, and lots of golf courses. And I know Valerie spoke with one PGA quality course in Massachusetts where they have lots of leaves, and they have. I think they said they use gas-powered leaf blowers twice a year, and are using electric for everything else and love it. Larchmont, New York, Mount Kisco, New York, and Washington, D.C. are actually phasing in complete bans at this point. Again, that's not what we're talking about, but there are other places, and I feel like that's the wave that's actually coming now. Like we're sort of on the back, a little bit on the back end of this trend, but now the trend seems to be moving in the direction of complete bans, not the direction we're going. And then I just noted here that some of you may have seen recent news that California is phasing in a complete ban of all gas-powered lawn equipment within the next few years. And California is not a great analogy for Westport, Connecticut, but I just mentioned it to say that it's happening, and it's something that they feel is something that can be supported and is reasonable. And so what happens next with this proposed ordinance? It has had 3 hearings. It is likely to have several more in the new session of the RTM that starts in December. And then it will, we hope at some point, go before the full RTM for debate and a vote. If it is approved, there would be a transition period before it goes into effect. That the exact date would depend on when it, if and when it gets passed. And then, just wanted to note, as with all ordinances, and this was certainly true of the plastic bag ban, I know education is really important to its success. We're not really interested in this being sort of a punitive thing. We really want people to kind of, learn about the alternatives, to adopt the alternatives. We have a lot of willing partners. I know, folks at Wakeman Town Farm, we've had a lot of support from Aspetuck Land Trust and Sustainable Westport and Earth Place. I think we've got a lot of potential partners who can help us with educational materials, including Spanish language materials, events, lectures, talks. Liz had great ideas about doing demos of electric equipment. We have a lot of electric car fans in Westport, so maybe we can kind of do an all-electric kind of demo day, bringing out some of this equipment to sort of show people how it works. Come to my house and use all the stuff my husband just bought because he's so excited about all this. And then finally, we are actually talking to, trying to seek philanthropic support for some incentives, maybe to buy battery-powered blowers or for giveaways of battery-powered blowers. I think, at the state level, we'd love to see them take on some of this at the state level, but I'm not sure there's the appetite for it there just yet, or maybe at the town level, but at a minimum, I think we've got some potential interest from philanthropic supporters to help, kind of get some excitement around this and provide some support for transitioning. And I think that's all I have, except just to say that these are the 4 of us who are here, who are the co-sponsors of this ordinance right now, and are happy to hear from folks.
Great.
Thanks.
So next is Valerie Jacob. Valerie is a Westport resident who's passionate about this issue. She has a law degree from Cornell, and she's on the faculty of Columbia University where she teaches writing. And she was a former chair of Save Westport Now, and she's gonna be talking to us about some of the health issues.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you to everyone from Wakeman for allowing us to have this presentation tonight. Thank you, all of you, for coming out. This is my first time speaking without a mask, so it's a little bit strange. I wanted you all to know that I actually put my cell phone number up here, okay? I'm a brave woman when it comes to this, so if you have questions, you can text me. Tell me what your question is, and I will, and better if you send me your email in the text, because it's easier for me to type, but I'm happy to answer them. And my email address is there as well. One other note, I did bring along some materials that I laid out on the counter over there. They have yellow dots on them. If any of you would like a copy of those materials, we're trying, to save trees. This is an environmental project, so we didn't bring lots of copies. Please text me and say you'd like a copy, and we're gonna create a Google file doc in the cloud, and then you can have access to it. There are a lot of materials about the health aspects. Unless it's separately footnoted in my slides, all of the backup scientific data is in one or more of the documents that I will be posting in the cloud. I just want you to know that I'm not speaking just off the cuff, that we do have the scientific backup for this. Next
We'll
slide.
also email, the slide presentations will be sent to anybody who is registered. You'll just get it automatically.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. Okay, so when I think about leaf blowers and what the problems are, they generally fall into 4 categories, okay? We have the noise, and frankly, that's how I got involved in this about 5 years ago. But I'm not gonna talk that much tonight about the noise. I do have a slide about it, but I'm not gonna talk that much about it. What I'm really here to talk about are the other health aspects, and noise is a health issue, okay? But what I wanna talk about are the toxic emissions. You have to remember that what's coming out of the back of the machine is a problem. What's coming out of the front of the machine is also an issue, to the extent it's dispersing toxic materials that may be on the ground, and I'll be talking about that. And then lastly, we have the fuel spillage problem. Next slide, please. Okay, toxic emissions and pollutants. When I first got involved in this, I had never even heard of this word down here, fine particulate matter. Okay, fine particulate matter is invisible, okay? It is emitted by the engine of a gas leaf blower, any 2-stroke engine for that matter. It's so fine that it passes through your nasal passages into your lung tissue and into your bloodstream. It is now deemed to be a direct carcinogen, okay? No carcinogen. Also, up to 30% of the fuel from a 2-stroke engine is ejected unspent. In that fuel are hydrocarbons and volatile organic compounds, including 3 of the most carcinogenic materials known to man: benzene, 1.3 butadiene, and formaldehyde. This is what is going on our lawns, folks, when these engines are being used. Obviously carbon monoxide, and lastly, these machines produce tremendous amounts of nitrogen oxide, which combines with the VOCs, and when there's sunlight outside, it forms ozone. We tend to think of California, or LA, as the smog capital of the world, and I'm going to talk more about air quality in Westport, which I think some of you will find surprising about our ozone levels. The health risks, the health risks: cancer, lung disease, worsened asthma, heart disease and heart attacks, stroke, and developmental and reproductive harm. In my materials over there on the counter, I actually have the operator manual for an Echo gas leaf blower, where they specifically have a warning on it that the emissions are known to cause developmental harm. Okay, so this is documented. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, some of this Kristen covered. Running a gas leaf blower. This is the magnitude of the problem, 2 sides of it. We already have some of the worst air quality east of the Mississippi. We have the worst ozone problem in the state of Connecticut. During the summer, we had 12 days where the ozone level exceeded the EPA maximum, and not just by a little bit, folks. On 5 of those days, we were almost 30% over the maximum. On 8 of those days, we had the highest levels in the state. Okay? Our PM, fine particulate matter by scientists is referred to as PM 2.5. That's that stuff I was talking about that you breathe in. We also have very high levels of that. Okay? It's so high that Westport is now issuing notices and warnings on days when the ozone level gets too high. The EPA specifically says, do not use gas-powered gardening equipment. They specifically mention, do not use leaf blowers on those days. Okay? You're supposed to keep your children indoors. It's particularly worrisome for children, I can put pets on here, but pets are included. Teenagers, seniors, anyone with any kind of underlying pulmonary issues really shouldn't go outside on those days. I had someone write to me recently, and I haven't checked her numbers, but she said that we've already had 21 days this year. I only counted during the summer, but she counted 21 days where the ozone level exceeded the EPA maximum. On those days, she couldn't send her little boy outside to play because of the air quality. So this is the existing air quality problem we have. The other side to this equation is that these leaf blowers produce prodigious amounts of pollution. Kristen already gave you similar statistics. A half an hour of one leaf blower produces the same quantity of smog-forming pollution as driving a Ford 150 truck from Texas to Alaska. Now think about that. If you have landscapers or homeowners who are running multiple machines for hours a day, just think about all the pollution that you are creating. I don't mean you personally in the room, I just mean those people. Okay? If you want to know about the fine particulate matter, one leaf blower produces 30 million micrograms. How much is that? Is that a lot? They did a study to measure what was the measurement around the breathing area of someone operating a gas leaf blower. And they found that the concentration was up to 54 times higher of fine particulate matter around the operator of a leaf blower than at one of the busiest intersections in Los Angeles. For all of you landscapers in the room, this is a huge, huge risk for you, okay? And I don't have a slide about this, but in order to stop fine particulate matter, a cloth mask will not work. You need an N95 or you need a special PM 2.5 filter in your mask, okay? And then lastly, California now, again, California, they're at the leading edge of this, but they now estimate that the pollution from gas-powered gardening equipment, not just blowers, now exceeds the pollution from automobiles. And I think they have 20 million automobiles or some number like that. It's an astonishing fact, okay? Next slide, please. Okay, so Alice is going to be talking more about this in her presentation, but ozone is not just bad for people, it's bad for the environment. It hurts plants, it hurts animals. Cornell just came out with a study about birds. You all are probably aware that we're losing birds by the millions, okay? One of the problems that Cornell discovered after studying this for 15 years, they have all the data, is that it's the ozone that is burning the breathing apparatus in the birds. This is from the US Department of Agriculture. Ground level ozone causes more damage to plants than any other air pollutants combined. On the other side of this is that ozone and the emissions, the VOCs and all that, are contributing, creating smog. This is a greenhouse gas. It's trapping heat at a certain level in our atmosphere, which is in turn creating this cycle where we're raising temperatures, and it's contributing to climate change and global warming. Next slide, please. Okay, I told you I'm not going to spend a lot of time on noise, but noise is actually a health issue. It raises your blood pressure, it can cause heart damage. It's harmful to children who are trying to concentrate. Famous study in New York. Children on one side of a building near the train tracks were a grade level behind in reading scores compared to the children on the quiet side of the building. If you don't believe that noise can actually affect learning, you need to think again. It also hurts animals. Animals cannot communicate. The birds cannot communicate to mate, etc. And it contributes to the loss of biodiversity. Next slide. Okay. This is the stuff that when someone's blowing a leaf blower, it's creating this cloud of stuff that's coming up. This is a little bit gross when I actually stop to think about this, right? Yeah, somebody's nodding, right? What is coming up is dust, pesticide, herbicide, animal feces, all kinds of bad stuff which you're breathing in, on top of the fine particulate matter. Okay, now I'm going to tell you that even battery blowers have this problem. So let's be honest about this, which is one reason why we're trying to think about reducing blowing in general, okay? But the other thing about the blowers is you're desiccating the topsoil. These are pictures of yards that have been blown with blowers, okay? It desiccates the soil. Last summer, well, it turned out to be a rainy summer, but when it started, right, our water company was telling us restrict, restrict, restrict. And we have all these people blowing all the grass clippings and drying out the lawns, right? It means more watering. We get into this vicious cycle. It contributes to the loss of vegetation, and again, Alice is going to talk more about this.
Yes, we need to get on to
Okay,
this.
it hurts the insect populations and the animal populations. And then my last slide is the fuel spillage. Here's an astonishing statistic. They estimate now 17 million gallons of fuel is spilled onto the ground by Americans in the process of refilling their gas-powered gardening equipment every year. That's 50% more than was spilled by the Exxon Valdez. Spilled gasoline, you know what it does. It pollutes our water, groundwater drinking, harms insects and wildlife, etc. A single gallon of gasoline contaminates 750,000 gallons of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. So next is, I wanted to introduce you to Alice Neely. Alice is head of our garden committee here. She's also one of the first promoters of the pollinator pathway here in Westport. She's a master gardener, and she's going to just give us a new perspective how we're all looking at how we could all look at our gardens.
And we're waiting for my slides to come up. Is it doing it again? While Allie's pulling up my slides, I just wanted to say that you've been hearing about the macro part of the story from Valerie and Kristen, and I'm really more about the garden level view from the pollinator perspective. And we are looking at it in a situation where the populations of insects and birds, insects are down 25% in 30 years. Birds are down 29% in 50 years. And regardless of which study you look at, the reason comes down to habitat loss. So all the creatures that we depend on to be part of a healthy ecosystem are being decimated because they're losing habitat. And the purpose behind Pollinator Pathway and the Green Corridor that Aztec Land Trust is also promoting, and homegrown national parks that Doug Calamy is promoting, the story is the same. In our yards, we need to restore habitat because we can't, our yards are 85% of the land mass. east of the Mississippi. So if we're not putting more habitat back in our yards, we aren't creating a viable ecosystem. So it's about healthy yards. And looks like she's having trouble. So I'm just gonna keep going. When you get there, I'll tell you what to move it up to. So we, in our yards, what I do need you to do is advance to the next slide. Thank you. I can see it. I'll just have to tell you what's on it. So we're talking about scaling back leaf cleanup for healthy yards. And I don't know if any of you have seen the posters, the campaign, it's all over Instagram, Leave Leaves Alone. We have to rethink yard cleanup for the sake of all creatures. For abundant reasons to be worried about our own health, and I worry constantly about the health of the people that I see operating that equipment. But I'm here to talk about sterile gardens make for silent springs, and we have to get rid of our appetite for having these perfect manicured lawns. Gas leaf blowers cause harm to habitats with the way they work. And leaves, those things that some people are trying to get rid of, have an important role in a healthy yard. Spotless, tidy yards are not sustainable anymore. We have to, as homeowners, it's an impossible standard to maintain. As landscapers, we need to be attuned, because I think if you get into the landscaping business, it's because you love the outdoors. And we're talking about protecting the outdoors. So visualize in your mind, if there were a slide here, there are two pictures. And the one on the left shows a yard which is spotless, and there's huge expanses of chocolate brown mulch and some lone trees sticking up here and there, and then a huge expanse of spotless green lawn. That's the old way. We need to learn to see the beauty of a healthy yard. Now, I'm a garden coach, and I spend a lot of time with people walking around their yards, and one of the first things I do is I say to them, you know, you don't want your yard to look like a golf course. That's like a food desert for the birds and the insects. We don't let your yard be a food desert. So what we want to see instead is a yard where there's a nice bed of leaves on each garden bed. And the lawn does not have to be perfectly free of leaves. I mean, sometimes I'll be sitting in my car and I'll look over and I'll see somebody with a backpack on, and they are chasing 3 leaves across the lawn with a backpack in the middle of summer. And it could be, that doesn't have to be, it could be mulch mowed instead. Okay, that's it. All right, so sorry, that beautiful slide is gone. Now the next beautiful slide, and I wish you could see this because it was eye-opening even for me. I mean, I'm a gardener, and I have learned over time, even gardeners used to be all about being tidy and proper and cleaning every speck away out of our gardens at the start of the winter and things like that. And we have learned to recalibrate. We learned we were doing it wrong and that wasn't a healthy yard. So we now know that gas blowers, force, and noise injure plants, insects, and soil, and disturb wildlife. I had a client who said to me, something's lying down on my lawn, on my plants and flattening them. I can't figure out what it is. I got a fence, it can't be deer. And I said, well, it's the gas blower. I said, you're flattening the plants. You're blasting them to smithereens, and it doesn't have to be. Mulch mowing allows light leaf cover to disappear into the lawn. It chops it up into fine pieces. Those fine pieces break down in no time. And it's important to note that you're adding the right kind of nutrients that way. It also improves the texture of the soil. So that mulching process, those little bits of leaves and grass clippings going into the soil, improve the soil. They add nitrogen back to the soil. So instead of dumping chemical fertilizers on the lawn, which end up in Long Island Sound and give us algae blooms, instead of that, the resource that's already there is what should be in. So also, leaving debris under the trees and shrubs provides valuable habitat and nutrients to the trees. So if you think about it in nature, trees evolve, they drop their leaves, that actually recycles back into the soil. There's nutrient mass in those leaves, they break down, it feeds the roots, and then it comes right back up into the tree again. So when you take that away from the tree, you've deprived it of some of what it needed to live on. So then somebody's like, oh, well, my tree's looking sickly, can we add some fertilizer? Well, you took it away. So this is really important. There's also something that gardeners now talk about it as a soft landing. That pile of debris and everything that's under the trees and under the bushes provides valuable habitat for a lot of creatures to overwinter in underneath. So visualize, if you could see my beautiful slide here, there's a tree with a beautiful ring of nice mulched leaves around it. And there is, I also have a picture of 2 tulip tree leaves, and one of them is nice and green, and the other one looks like, it's not very green, it's missing its chlorophyll, it's not very green, it's got brown speckles like it's about to die. That second leaf is one that was poisoned by ozone contamination. So the study and all the resources, everything that I used to put the presentation together, which you'll actually get to see because I'm going to email it to you afterward, but the Yale professor who did this particular study on the impact of ozone on plants said to think of the ozone garden as the canary in the mine shaft. The plants show the damage first. We can't see some of the damage that's happening to us. So something to keep in mind. I learned I am all about the pollinator pathway. I grow a lot of milkweed because I like to nurture monarchs. And I couldn't figure out, I felt my milkweed was dying too soon. It was fading out too soon. And I found out through this Yale study that milkweed is very sensitive to ozone. So now I know why my milkweed is petering out before it should in my garden. So it's quite real. So the next beautiful slide is about creature-friendly reasons not to blow. And there is an interesting cross-section, a spot under the snow where a queen bumblebee has dug her tunnel in under the leaves, and that's her nest for the winter. She comes out in the spring. First thing she does is tank up on the crocuses that you've got blooming in your yard and get some of the pollen. That's her first meal. But in fact, not just queen bumblebees, but most butterflies and moths overwinter in the landscape as an egg or a chrysalis or an adult. And leaf litter is where they go for cover. That's their protection. Also, what else? Yes, bees. Bees lay eggs in nests. 70% of them are nesting in the ground. And I'm not talking about honeybees here. I'm talking about our native bees who do a big job. The other 30% nest in cavities, like the stems of your dried plants that are standing up in your garden that you didn't cut down, right? Because you're leaving them for them. So if you're doing a blower and you're knocking all those stems down or raking every leaf out of that bed, you have removed the habitat that's going to sustain that population of insects, that's going to sustain the birds, and so on up the chain. So it's a cascading effect when you take this stuff away. I mean, you might not even know there's a certain kind of bat that overwinters in leaf litters. Salamanders, fireflies. I hear some people saying, there aren't as many fireflies as there used to be. Well, this is one of the reasons why. Okay, we got it. Okay, so leaves are without my slide, leaves are a valuable resource. They make superb free mulch, so it's much more sustainable to use the mulch that came free to you on your property than to have it carted away and import mulch back in again. And a lot of that mulch that you get at Home Depot, the tinted mulch, actually is tinted with petroleum products. So why would you put that on your lawn when you have nice free leaves? Okay, so you can go ahead to the next slide. So this is my last slide, and it contains tips to manage leaves for a healthy yard. And if you're a homeowner, and you rely on a landscaper to take care of your yard for you, this is a conversation to have with them. So, let your preferences be known. I know that some landscapers I have talked to in the course of my garden coaching are certain that if they don't leave the place looking manicured like a golf course, their clients won't be happy with them. So speak up and express your wishes. So, for example, maybe you put your extra leaves, if you've got a little strip of woods, that's a great place to pile up extra leaves. I have a pile that I use later for leaf mulch on my garden beds. I also use a lot in my composting, so there's a lot of things that you can do for leaves besides mulching them that serve a great purpose. So if you're a landowner, have the conversation with your lawn service or your landscaper. Now, I had the conversation, in closing I'll say this, I had that conversation with my landscaper a number of years ago, and he was great about it. So he's mulch mows for me, he leaves me a great pile of leaves that I can draw on to use for my compost and everything, and he puts the excess back in our wood lot at the back of our yard. He's really great about it. And the one thing that he doesn't want to give up, though, is his gas leaf blower, and we've had this conversation. And so this is really why we need an ordinance, because he is worried about not having a level playing field. If he goes and gets the other thing, what about the other guys? The other guy gonna undercut him and everything. So having an ordinance would be a level playing field. So it's something that is really important. And I'll stop talking. Hope you enjoyed the slides.
Alice's slides are so much prettier than ours, so. Pretty slides.
Thank you, Alice. So, can we have some questions from the audience? We're really here to hear from people in the audience tonight. So are there questions, or people want to make some comments?
Have you spoken to any RTM members from Fairfield?
Valerie, have you talked, not RTM members, you talked to
I
some
have
people in
spoken to
Fairfield.
some people in Fairfield who are interested in pursuing this, but frankly, this has become almost like a full-time job in Westport. I'm happy to speak to anyone if you send them my way, and I can probably dig through and find the names of the people I did speak
All right,
with.
then let's connect. I run the pollinator pathway in Fairfield, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I
We're
do.
friends, yes, I'm good.
I am in touch, by the way, with New Haven. New Haven, the aldermen have just agreed to consider a ban, so it's coming up for review
Did
there.
Richfield do something? I heard that they were also looking at a ban. so I-
I'm sorry, which?
Richfield.
Ridgefield.
Ridgefield actually has one moderate,
Noise ordinance?
yeah, it deals with noise. They don't actually have, and let's not call it a ban, let's call it a regulation, because it really isn't a ban. A lot of misinformation was out there originally, oh, you're banning gas leaf blowers.
Well, I'd like to ban Cisco tensions across
Right.
the board.
But what we're
that's the
saying
easy
is, there's a friendly moth here.
There you go. Wow.
No wonder, right? Alice is here. I lost my train of thought. Oh, what we're really saying is, please don't blow in the summer. That's like the number one thing. And I have a whole slew of articles over there that talk about how it's a myth that causes thatch. It's an absolute myth. Scott's Lawn Company and a whole slew of them, I have articles over there. What we're really asking to start with is to stop blowing during the summer, limit the number of machines you're using in the spring and the fall because of the noise and the pollution aspects, particularly for Westport. We have a monitoring station on Sherwood Island, so we know what our air quality is day to day.
Yes, in the back?
I'm the one that was the one with the 21 ozone action days in Connecticut, and I just want to point out that all the other states in New England are in single digits, the low single digits, just Connecticut is the worst ones. But I was just wondering, what are the main sources of pushback to this ordinance, and how would you counter them? And where are they coming from?
I mean, I guess I would say that first of all, I just think and this is a good forum to just make sure that information is getting out about what we're actually proposing. So I think it might be natural for people to say, oh, they're talking about banning gas-powered leaf blowers completely. It's not what we're talking about. So I think it's important to make sure that the information is out about what's in the proposal. I think a lot of it is sort of, it's a change, right? It's gonna require people to change their behavior or the way that they do things, and that's always challenging for all of us, I think, across the board, and concerns about whether electric equipment is gonna be able to do the task in the fall in particular, I would say, but we're not talking about banning their use in the fall, certainly. I would say there's concerns. I'm sure we've got some folks here who might have concerns about the economics of it. But again, what we're talking about is not a ban. We're talking about during months in the summer, if you need to, because your client's required, or because you as a homeowner want to do it. We've heard some good reasons why not to blow your grass clippings, but if you're blowing the lighter weight stuff that is typically what you're blowing in the summer, battery powered equipment is very much up to the task. There is an upfront cost, obviously, to investing in some new equipment. One thing I will say is that operating that equipment is quite a lot less costly than operating gas-powered equipment. It's, I think there's a great organization called the American Green Zone Alliance, which was started by a guy who's a lifelong landscaper who has kind of turned his attention to helping towns and universities and other large entities transition to greener lawn maintenance. They provide a lot of information and also really great resources. I noticed recently that they just added a page to their website, which I've been wanting them to have, and it's not because I asked, but apparently he had the same idea. There's a page on his website now that lists, has links to what they call AGSA certified equipment. So they provide a certification to green landscaping equipment that meets a certain number of qualifications, and they finally put a list, and you can link directly from it to like the Husqvarna equipment that meets these requirements, the Ego equipment that meets these requirements. So it's really easy to kind of go and find like what's the stuff I should be looking at if I want to buy it. But it's like the piece of data I got from him was that to operate an average, let's say, commercial backpack blower electric is 24 cents an hour versus gas-powered blower $1.25 an hour. Because of the cost of the gas, the battery equipment is also less costly to maintain, just given the nature of the engine. So it's more of an upfront cost to buy it, especially because you have to buy the battery and the extra battery. You want at least one extra battery, right? Don't we all need an extra battery? So you've got the equipment, you've got 2 batteries, so it might cost some more upfront to buy the equipment than to buy a gas blower, but it's gonna cost you a lot less to operate over the course of a year. So sorry, that was a long-winded answer to say that there are some. I understand the concerns about like I'm gonna have to spend some money upfront to get this new equipment. We actually have there's a guy in our neighborhood who does a lot of the folks in my neighborhood's lawn care. My husband loves doing our lawn, our yard work, so I'm really lucky, but he gets a lot out of it, and I don't have to pay somebody to do it. But a lot of us in the neighborhood use a guy who lives in our neighborhood, and they sort of said, if we pass an ordinance, we're going to do a GoFundMe campaign so we can buy John an electric battery powered leaf blower. That's not the answer for everybody, but it's like clearly those folks were kind of sensitized to the fact that like we want to make sure that he doesn't have a concern about having to make that change. So,
Do we have some landscapers in the audience that'd like to talk a little bit about this? With that?
My name's John Sweeney. Been a landscaper for 38 years, Westport resident for 35 years. I've been in the pesticide supply business, fertilizer supply business. I'm currently selling equipment and battery equipment. And you guys have covered a lot of topics tonight, from pollution to noise to pollinator pathways. And all of that stuff is really, a lot of the stuff you presented is somewhat factual and true. And the way you're spinning it into these one sort of leaf blower only ban is a little bit concerning to us in the landscape community. And I know that I have a copy of your proposal, which is, outlines it's not a ban, it's educational, and it's about reducing the equipment, some of that's all good, but we as landscapers need to be heard, which is kind of what this is about. But we also need to be involved with your decision making and also about what's really going on. And over the last 20 years in particular, we've had a great reduction in pesticide usage with IPM, and it's been great. A lot of the issues you have with bees is not leaf blowers. It's actually neonicotinoids and a lot of other serious pesticide issues and insecticides. So I think really importantly, we'd like to have a voice at your table, more so than just the meetings, but let's be involved with dialogue that's really, really factual and also pertinent to our organizations that we're all belong to and our businesses. I'm a shitty public speaker, so.
No, you're doing great, you're doing great.
I just wanna make sure that everybody here understands that we're not here to argue with each other, but let's come to the table and have some really sensible dialogue. I agree with the noise 100%. 1990s, we were involved with Greenwich. It came up again in 2012, we were involved with that. We helped write the ordinance. And it was recently, as you know, amended and it goes into law coming 1st of 22 for almost what you're kind of talking about here. We think that there's some sort of a compromise that could be had, and I agree with the noise 100%. I think most guys, who wants to sit out at night at 7 o'clock and there's a couple guys blowing stuff and making a lot of noise? One last point, don't limit it to just one piece of equipment. You've got a shitload of gas equipment running, trimmers, compressors, two generators, chainsaws, big lawn cutting equipment.
Masonry saws, masons.
I mean, there's a ton of stuff. You guys wanna drive around? I'll show you all day long. I sell all the stuff. Happy to educate you. There's a lot of equipment. You can't just ban one piece. That's kinda like being not too fair. It's like me taking your laptop away. It's an efficient tool for the landscaper. Manufacturers are improving and going towards electric. One of my companies that I sell has banned gas powered equipment. They don't make it anymore. They're getting rid of the inventory and going all battery. You'll see it in cars pretty soon. Another 10 years, you'll be hard pressed to find gas cars in your car dealer. So the industry's changing. We just need to come up with a way to get everybody to go from point A to point B and do it sensibly. So that's it.
Well, I would like to say that, we're gonna listen to everyone tonight, and at the end of the meeting, we'll figure out a way to have a meeting all together with the sponsors, and so we're working together on this, because that's the point of the evening, and I really appreciate your voice tonight. Is anyone else, any of the other, yes? Go ahead.
Liz, can you ask them to mention the name of their company so that we can make sure to still ask? I mean, or
If
find
you
a way
want, if
to.
you want to.
If they want to.
If you want to.
My name is Mike Switzer, North Country Landscape Management. I'm also here to represent the Connecticut Groundskeepers Association. I think one of the biggest factors that we're overlooking here is, I'm sure a lot of the people in this room has the benefit of having the finances to not have to put one of these backpack blowers on their back. I'm sure a lot of people have never had to spend an entire weekend raking their 2-acre property. But many of you are probably used to pulling out the checkbook and writing the big checks to clean the big properties. I think it's really gonna hit a lot of people in the pocketbook, and a lot of those people may not be as well heeled as some of the people who wanna fight leaf blowers. And when your mothers or the people on fixed incomes, retirees, get told by people like us that, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, your property used to cost $1,800 a year to clean up. Now we gotta do it by hand, we have to use less efficient equipment, because I can tell you right now, if you're gonna do some sort of demonstration between electric equipment and the benefits of it, you should throw in a gas blower for a couple of minutes, because you're gonna see why we're using them. They are worlds more efficient, almost twice as efficient. And I think a lot of people are gonna be rudely awoken to the fact that they're gonna have to pay substantially more to do the services that they need to do on their property. And I'm prepared to tell my clients that it may be up to 75 to 100% more to clean their property at the end of the year. And I think most of the other landscapers I've spoken with are in agreement that you're doubling the amount of labor that's gonna have to happen on your property. In addition to that, although it may be obnoxious to hear 4 or 5 guys using a gas-powered leaf blower for an hour or so at your neighbor's house on an afternoon on a Friday, it might be a little worse to hear your neighbor who said, okay, now I can only use one blower, I'm gonna strap that thing on at 9 a.m. and I'm gonna go from sun up to sundown all weekend long. So there are a lot of other things we have to think about here before we kind of strike down and ban the usage of more than one leaf blower on a property per fall. So I think we should look to towns like Greenwich. Like John said, I think we have some common sense legislation. And, we also have to inform the landscapers that you work with in the community about what we're thinking about proposing, so that everyone can come together and work out a solution.
What do you like about the Greenwich, legislation?
Can I ask what the difference is between the Greenwich legislation?
Yeah, that's what I just.
I have a copy, probably enough for everyone, of the Greenwich regulations here. So I'd be glad to pass those out to everyone, if you want to just hand these around. So you can't use anything between 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. And that is I'll read it out so you don't have to wait. No person shall operate or permit the operation of any mechanically powered saw, drill, sander, grinder, lawn or garden tool or other tool between the hours of 9 and 8. No person shall operate or permit the operation of any gasoline powered leaf blower between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, and between 3 and 9 Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. Commercial and or residential property parcels of up to a quarter acre or less may only be serviced by one gasoline powered leaf blower at any given time. Premises located within the town of Greenwich may only be serviced by one gasoline powered leaf blower at any given time from Memorial Day through Labor Day. So in the fall, you'd be allowed to use more, because I can tell you right now, we're finding it hard to staff. I'm sure a lot of you have waited longer than you wanted to get projects done around your property. And if we're gonna have to drag our heels even longer using less efficient equipment, you're gonna be waiting even longer. And I hate telling our customers no. And I know a lot of my other compatriots here agree. We don't like telling people that, oh, it's gonna be a week, it's gonna be 2 weeks, you're gonna be waiting. And you're gonna be looking around Westport, and there's gonna be a lot of people whose homes are gonna start looking blighted. And you're gonna have streets that are covered in leaves because we don't have the equipment to clean them. You're gonna have more accidents when the rainy day comes and all the leaves are blowing towards the road and you're sliding through the stop sign. So there's just a lot of things that we need to bring to the table to let everyone know, because, you know, I think there's a lot of things that are being overlooked. So,
Thank
thanks.
you.
And
Thank
I
you.
also want to say that I appreciate a lot of the environmental things you're saying. I'm in agreement with noise, I'm in agreement with emissions, and we're all looking to embrace electronic equipment when the time comes, but we're not quite there.
Okay. We're here, we're really listening, and we're here to work with everyone, so really appreciate your comments. Over here,
Hi, my name is Jarrell, and I own Go Green Landscapers. So Go Green Landscapers was founded 3 years ago, and we were struggling at first, obviously, because there weren't adequate units out there for us to use as far as landscaping goes. We started out using, for commercial reasons, residential units, because that was what was coming out first, right? So in growing and in moving on year after year, I've realized that a lot of companies now are coming out with equipment that are more than, or that will more than suffice for what we do as landscapers. I have not been a landscaper for 30 years. I've been a landscaper for a little over 9 years. I owned a company before that where we used regular equipment, gas-powered equipment, and I wanted to do the change because I felt the need to make that change because of the fact that you're sitting there holding a blower, you're sitting there holding a weed whacker, you're sitting there holding anything, any sort of equipment. There is, you're getting a lot of pollution, you're breathing in a lot of that stuff. And there's been times where I was just sick, feeling sick because of all the fumes that I'm smelling, right? So after a while of doing that, I figured there has to be a better way, right? So yes, there is a significant upfront cost for that. And there are a lot of things that we can do to combat that, right? So for a while we can, slow down or have that conversation instead of a homeowner having the conversation with their landscaper, have the landscaper have that conversation with the homeowner, right? To say, hey, is there anything that we can reduce as far as the blowing goes? A lot of my customers now don't really care if I blow certain areas, right? Yes, there are the few that want that perfectly manicured lawn, and that's fine. For that person, I use that blower, right? So I think one of the biggest things for me, just speaking from experience, is knowing that what I save and what I have saved on, not having to do the maintenance to the equipment, every single year, right? Not having to get any two-stroke oil or two-stroke fuel or whatever it might be, right? Oil, fuel, the tune-ups that the equipment needs, I mean, we're running these equipments all day long. We start at 8 o'clock, we end when it's too dark to keep going, right? That's how my company runs right now. So when you look at that, the amount of money that we're saving in fuel, the amount of money that we're saving in the maintenance that is required to these equipment is astonishing. And I will challenge any landscaper right now to do what we did, right? And not see a benefit to it, basically, right? There's a massive benefit to it. And because of that benefit that we see, yes, it's gonna take a little longer to leaf blow since we're speaking about leaf blowers, right? Yes, our decks might not have 4 blades across. We're not running 72 inch because the amount of battery it's gonna take to run that. We're running, 60 inches or 54 inches or whatever it might be. But, for that little bit, if I'm being selfish, makes it worth it for me because I'm not spending half as much as I used to spend trying to keep this unit running or trying to keep 10 units running at any given time, right? So we have made that change. And again, I understand it is going to be an upfront cost, right? We use battery powered vehicles, right? So we're pulling a trailer now with a Tesla, right? All our equipment right now is powered by battery. We have solar panels on top of our trailers right now that are helping the battery powered equipment as we move from property to property. I'm not saying it's going to charge it. It has not charged it completely, but it does give me that little bit, that 5 miles I need at the end of the day to finish that one more property, right? So there is an upfront cost, but I think it's worth it.
Can you elaborate on the upfront cost, please?
Sure. So as far as a leaf blower, we're speaking about leaf blowers go. As far as
the whole thing.
Oh, the whole
Like
thing.
soup to nuts.
All right. So soup to nuts, I'll say if you're taking the electric vehicle out of it, because I think that was something that I wanted to do just to set myself apart. So if we're taking that out of it, we're just doing the necessity of all the equipment. Skag mower is going to run you somewhere around. A bigger Skag mower is going to cost me somewhere around 28, 29. Pardon?
14,000 I just bought.
Okay, so 14. If you're getting the decent, yeah, that's fine. So anywhere from that to one of the bigger ones that are going to cost you somewhere around 30 grand, right? So you can go between that price range for a Skag gas-powered lawnmower, or you can go with something like Mean Green, who we use a lot of their equipment. Who is selling their equipment for anywhere from $7,000 to $30,000, depending on the size of the unit that you get. So the cost difference is really not that. There's really not that much of a difference, right? And the amount of money that you're saving as far as maintenance goes, my maintenance is blades. That's it.
No, I understand. I'm just asking, I'm being specific, but if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's
The
fine.
whole changeover that you just alluded to.
Yes.
What did it cost?
It cost me $84,000.
Okay.
Yes.
How many square feet do you manage?
As far as square feet right now, I don't have the exact on that. I apologize, and I don't want to give you. We have 7 employees, including myself. So, yeah. We do about 100 and I think we do earn 119 properties right now.
Can I ask you another question?
Absolutely.
I'm trying not to be but believe me, I'm a nice guy.
No, I'm that. Hey, we're all in it for the same thing.
I mean, no, this is important.
Yeah.
I'm just asking for transparency, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
How did you change your price structure to your clients to offset your upfront costs?
It really depends. There's certain properties I just can't do anything more on, right? Because we're pretty much maxed out on. We all have those kind of clients who are just pretty much stuck on whatever that price might be. However, for me, when I pitched a lot of this, so we work mainly out of the New Haven County. So we're anywhere from Madison over to West Haven and then up to Wallingford is our coverage area right now, right? And when you look at these areas, for us, we find that obviously it's going to be easier for someone in a better off position to be able to take that cost increase that it's going to take. So it really just depends on the size of the property. I would say on average, probably going to run you somewhere around $5 to $10 more for the service, depending on what we're doing. And again, it really depends on the size of the property.
What are the sizes of properties you're working on?
I would say the majority of the properties that we work at right now, we're looking somewhere from 1/2 to 1.5 acres.
Were you able to sell your previous equipment to offset some of the costs?
I guess I'll just tell you about myself. So I went to UHart. My degree is in engineering technologies. I have also have another degree in mathematics. I am fascinated with different, right? I'm fascinated with something different, right? So what I am doing, a lot of the equipment we did end up selling, but what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to see if there's a way, or we have been working with a few companies, mainly out of California, where there's a way to convert our previous gas equipment over to battery. There's a company now in California that we have shipped out 3 of our Skags to that we used to use, for the previous company, that are working on converting it into battery power. So yes and no. We did sell a lot of them. However, we still have some. We're just converting them.
That's a business right there.
Just quickly, the whole point of selling them is that it's just gonna be spewing all this horrible stuff somewhere else because we've offloaded it.
Exactly.
So the whole thing would be a buyback, like with guns in New York City, or, reinventing these things so that they're not just getting shoved off somewhere else.
Precisely.
Because why even bother talking about it?
Precisely, which is
So
why.
buy them back or convert them or.
Exactly, which is, so for us, that is one of the main reasons why I wanted to try and convert the equipment that we already had, because that's a lot of waste that's going, right? So after the first few that we did sell, I was like, all right, we have to try something else. So I started looking it up and see what it would take to do that. Because if you can convert, one of my Beetles I had convert, an old Beetle that my mother bought brand new, we just converted to battery. So if you can convert a Beetle or a vehicle, you can convert anything else.
Are there other?
Yeah, I have to go, but I just want to say something real quick. And I live on a smaller property, so I can't relate to the 2 acre properties, but there are a lot of properties like mine, like all properties in my neighborhood. So my landscaper, I just have one guy, he knows not to blow, I don't like it. I just raked this weekend. I loved it. I was outside, it was beautiful. I didn't get every single leaf, but you know what, when you come to my house, it looks like fall. It looks fine. I mean, I think it's just a matter, we're not trying to vilify the landscapers, but people need to adjust their expectations a little. Like Al said.
Well, I think one thing that has to be looked into is public-private partnership. You need to look at the manufacturers of the electronic equipment as some kind of a trade-in or replacement program, where maybe a manufacturer like an Ego or somebody like that that's beginning to come out with commercial level equipment for the first time.
Yep.
I'm familiar with the big green machine.
Yep.
Probably your brother, who you haven't met, is a guy by the name of Dan Deventhal, who runs Mo Green and.
Yes. Yes.
Fairfield. So
Yes.
he's a good friend of mine. So.
Yeah, we're actually good friends as well. So.
Oh, all right.
So I see a lot of people are starting to leave. We usually do these for 1 hour. I think what I've gotten out of tonight, that I'd really like some of the landscapers to stay for a little bit at the end here. I think we need to have a round table with the landscapers, with the sponsors. Not tonight, but plan something for the future so we can hear more and see how we can all work together on this. So if you in the back can wait, yes?
I got a question real quick.
Yeah.
I know, and it's not about the landscapers, is why is the Parks and Rec exempt from it versus?
And golf courses.
And the golf courses versus?
And how is the commercial properties?
Sorry, so the golf courses question, the golf courses are not actually exempt from it. We did make an exception to the 9 to 5 rule for golf courses, in that they can blow before 9 a.m. with electric. Because what we were hearing was they need to, keep the customers happy to blow.
I thought they were, like,
But we thought, well,
exempt
some
from
greens
it.
you could do with electric. And they're out there in the combo at, they say 5:30 in the morning. So we thought if you can do that with an electric blower, that seems like it, it should be okay.
They blow the greens off to keep the disease down too, and it reduces pesticide and specifically fungicide applications. So, to your point, blowing off the greens is a kind of it may be blowing, but on the other hand, it's helping one other problem, which is overuse of pesticides.
Pesticide
So
mitigation.
that's where we go back to this balance between cultural work and chemical work.
Yeah,
Yes.
understood.
We
I think in this
understand
case, it's
that.
like the battery, given how
Battery stuff is
it's not a
great, I
heavy
sell
duty
it, but
task to blow the T's and greens, and it seemed like battery
It's
was
not the answer
a good
there.
solution to that.
Andrew, you wanted to say Andrew's one of the sponsors of this?
Yeah, for anyone who does have a business or is interested and wants to be a part of the discussion, because the RTM is obviously, a new session is beginning November 16th. This ordinance is gonna be going into another reading, which will be public, it'll be read into the minutes, and then it's gonna go to the appropriate committees. If anyone has to leave and if they can't stay, just come see me, so I can get your contact information, your email, so that we can upload it and get you obviously involved at all the discussions, because this is obviously gonna go to ordinance committee, environment committee, and, I mean, it's gonna take a little bit of time, but, I mean, we want everyone present. It's all about transparency.
No, thanks, everybody.
Well, we wanna work together,
Yeah.
so if some of the landscapers wanna stay and move up front, and, really appreciate everyone coming, it was a great discussion tonight, thank you so much.